Simon Peter was a Galilean fisherman who cast nets in the Sea of Galilee. Yet today, the Catholic Church, the world's largest religious institution, claims its entire structure is built squarely on his shoulders. This claim is rooted in the Gospel of Matthew, where Jesus tells him, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church," before handing him what the text describes as the keys of the kingdom of heaven. That single line of scripture forms the basis for the modern papacy. It provides the theological mechanism that allows the Pope to claim direct succession from Peter as the Bishop of Rome, wielding authority over the universal church. But that spiritual legitimacy carries a geographical requirement. For the papacy to function as claimed, Peter actually had to live, rule, and die in the city of Rome. The New Testament never explicitly states that Peter set foot in the Roman capital. The Apostle Paul lived in Rome and wrote extensive letters to the Roman Christians, greeting dozens of people by name. Peter is missing from those texts entirely. Because of this silence, some scholars look to the Greek text of Matthew for a different interpretation. The original language uses two words, Petros, meaning a small, detached stone, and Petra, meaning a massive bedrock foundation. Protestants argue Jesus was building the church on the Petra of Peter's faith, not the Petros of Peter the man. This linguistic gap fueled arguments that crowning Peter as the first bishop of Rome is a later political development, a narrative used to centralize and justify papal power. If the Bible contains no record of his presence in the city, the Vatican faces the possibility that its foundation is a geographical myth. In the closing lines of the first letter attributed to Peter, the author sends a final greeting from a city he calls Babylon. By the 1st century, the historical city of Babylon was a ruin. However, in Jewish and early Christian literature of the era, Babylon served as a widely understood code for Rome. Following the Great Fire of Rome in the year 64, Emperor Nero initiated a brutal persecution. Christians were considered members of an illegal cult, and for a leader like Peter to explicitly name his location in a letter would have alerted Roman authorities to the center of the movement. Beyond the biblical text, the trail continues in the writings of the early church fathers, the generation of historians and bishops who followed the apostles. Ancient writers including Irenaeus, Clement, and Lactantius provide a consistent account, recording that Peter traveled to Rome and preached publicly within the city. These accounts describe Peter's martyrdom during Nero's reign, specifically noting his crucifixion on Vatican Hill. Tradition holds he was crucified head down because he felt unworthy to die in the same manner as Jesus. While the coded scriptures and ancient histories align, textual tradition does not offer the same certainty as physical evidence. Confirming a 1st century residency in Rome requires physical archaeological evidence. The investigation centers on the papal altar inside St. Peter's Basilica. For nearly 2 millennia, this was the traditional, but unverified, site of the Apostles' grave. This technical image shows the results of mid-20th century excavations directly beneath the basilica floor. These secret digs uncovered a 1st century necropolis located deep under the modern church. Archaeologists identified a niche within a wall covered in graffiti. One inscription read, "Petros Eni," Peter is here. Inside, they found the remains of a man in his 60s, dating to the 1st century, whose bones had been wrapped in purple cloth threaded with gold. Based on the alignment of the tomb's age, the specific inscriptions, and the skeletal analysis, Pope Paul VI made an official announcement in 1968. The Vatican declared that the remains of St. Peter had been conclusively identified. The discovery of a 1st century burial site directly beneath the high altar provided the physical anchor for the historical claim that Peter lived and died in Rome. Most modern historians, both religious and secular, now agree that Peter traveled to Rome and was martyred there. While a minority of scholars still question the specific archaeological findings, the weight of the evidence has moved the debate toward a general acceptance of his Roman residency. However, accepting that Peter died in Rome is not the same as accepting the Pope's absolute authority. Eastern Orthodox and Protestant traditions concede that Peter was martyred in the capital, but they attribute to him a personal prestige rather than a supreme office that could be passed down to successors. This monument illustrates the final result of that history. A fisherman who once denied knowing Jesus is now the figure buried beneath the grandest religious monument in the former Roman Empire. Regardless of one's stance on papal authority, Peter's journey to Rome successfully linked history with faith, permanently changing the course of Western civilization.